Welcome to a nourishing midweek lunch hour conversation with Spokane's newsmakers, thought leaders, and popular entertainers. Spokane Talks Live is brought to you by our friends at Homes for You and Breakthrough Incorporated. Welcome to Spokane Talks Live.
All right, so one of the best things about summer is, of course, music. I know something I really look forward to is music in the summertime, and so I'm joined by Merilee Updike from the Coeur d'Alene Symphony. And Merilee, you are actually here to talk about the symphony and some special things going on there. But first I want you to tell us a little bit about the history of the symphony itself. So what does that look like?
Okay, well, a lot of people don't realize that the Coeur d'Alene Symphony actually started out at North Idaho College. Robert Singletary started the group in the fall of 1979, and it was the North Idaho College Chamber Orchestra. And then the next year he added brass winds percussion to make it a little bit larger. But it was the North Idaho College Symphony at that point until May of 2000, when they received their nonprofit status to become independent, and that's when we became the Coeur d'Alene Symphony Orchestra. Was in May of 2000. So when you include all of that time, we're getting ready to start our 40th season, which is really exciting, especially having made it through the economic downturn of the past few years, where a lot of independent orchestras didn't make it, and so we're still here and we're still kicking.
That's exciting. And another big change recently at the symphony is that you've added a new conductor for your 40th season.
Correct, yes.
And I know there was a big search that took place with that, so kind of walk us through what that process looked like.
Sure, yeah. So we had a conductor for 15 years, and he decided to resign 2 years ago. So we went and did a little bit of research on how other groups search for conductors, and we put out our advertisements. We got over 60 applicants, which was amazing for our group, and we were really excited with the quality. And so each of us on the committee took 4 or 5 names. We did individual phone interviews, narrowed it down to a pool of candidates that we wanted to interview as a committee, and then from that group we narrowed it down to the 5, and those 5 each took a complete concert series, because we wanted to see them, how they conducted rehearsals, how they interacted with the musicians, and then how they did the concerts. We didn't want them to just step on the stage and conduct a concert, because they need to know, the musicians need to know how the conductor's going to interact with them.
Right.
And then after each concert series, then for each of the respective conductors, we surveyed the musicians and we surveyed the audience and asked them for their feedback, because this person has to interact with the community, interact with the musicians, interact with the audience, and we needed the feedback from all of them. And at the end of the season, then we kind of threw in a little surprise and said, hey, if you've been at all 5 concerts, please give us your favorite. And then we pulled the orchestra and
really
asked
neat.
them to do.
And it's very inclusive and thoughtful.
Yes.
Which I think sometimes when organizations are hiring somebody, it's, they're so worried that it has to be done really quickly that they forget those little things.
Yeah.
And that it should be someone that's going to be vested in the community and who can relate and is a great communicator with their musicians, and as well as a fantastic conductor. So that's really neat. Another thing that you guys have coming up, though, in addition to your new conductor, is a gala in August.
August 11th from 5 to 8 at the Coeur d'Alene Resort is what we're calling our Symphony Celebration, and it is to welcome Jan. It's to celebrate our past. We're hoping to have some pictures and a little insight from the first conductor, and we've also invited David Demand, the person that had the baton for 15 years, and his wife Renee, and so we're excited to have them with us. And then we'll be joined by some of the symphony musicians will be performing just chamber works, and we've also got some other local artists that are coming in and performing, for instance, Aspire Theater or some of the singers affiliated with Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater, but groups that we like to collaborate with. The arts groups need to stay together and,
for sure,
and really
that's important.
Work together.
And I'm sure wonderful food.
Yes, absolutely. The Coeur d'Alene Resort. I mean, it's going to be fantastic food.
That's very exciting. And that is August 11th.
August 11th from 5 to 8. And you can get the tickets from cdasymphony.org.
Okay.
And the seating is limited. So if you want a ticket, you need to go out and get them.
Yes, for sure. And that's cdasymphony.org.
Yes, that is correct.
And tickets will be how long? When's the deadline that you probably better get your tickets by?
I would say that people would want to get their tickets by about a week ahead. We have to be able to give head count for food and such the week of the event.
Very cool. And do you know how much tickets are off?
They're $75.
$75.
Yes, and that's going to include the meal and the entertainment, and then we're going to have some other fun things like a silent auction and
cool.
Hopefully some games and things to
fun. Very cool. Well, I wish you the best in the upcoming season. Very exciting. I know you'll have wonderful concerts throughout the year, and we look forward to having you on to discuss those. But thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
And when we come back on Spokane Talks Live, we have a special guest you might have seen recently on the Today Show on NBC, Heather Caplan, when we come back on Spokane Talks Live.
Your home is unique, and you deserve an assessor that understands Spokane real estate home values. I'm Realtor Leonard Christian, and I'm running to be your next county assessor. I served our nation for over 20 years in the United States Air Force and as a Washington State representative. I have the education, skills, and experience needed to be your next county assessor, and I encourage you to find out more at leonardchristianforassessor.com. People matter, and you deserve a leader who listens. It's time to elect Leonard Christian for Spokane County Assessor, paid for by Leonard Christian for Assessor.
The economy is getting stronger. Banks are lending again, and interest rates are at historic lows. Now is a great time to buy your dream home. The caring and knowledgeable professionals at Homes for You have been helping people just like you for over 20 years. They take the time to listen to what you want and will help you find just the right home in Washington or Idaho. Real estate is what we do at Homes for You, 928-5782, or visit online at homes4uspokane.com.
Is your child having trouble coping with a personal disability, but don't know where to go? Consider our friends at Breakthrough Incorporated. Breakthrough takes great pride in mentoring their DDA clients who have intellectual disabilities and their BRS clients who have challenging behaviors toward the creation of safe, appropriate, ethically sound life goals. They integrate programs at school and home to enrich their lives. They work hard to make a positive difference in you and your family's lives. Breakthrough provides a highly structured, fully staffed residential setting in local neighborhoods, 6 in Spokane and 2 in the Tri-Cities. Diagnoses affect people differently, so their service to each resident is unique, giving them the opportunity to grow and evolve. For more information on Breakthrough, visit their website at breakthroughincorporated.org.
You're really doing it! You're ready to buy a house. You know what you can afford, you've got a pre-approval letter, and you and your partner haven't killed each other yet. Now's the fun part. First, think about your main requirements.
Location,
house type,
square footage,
number of beds and baths,
garage,
property age.
Then think about specific features.
waterfront,
Pool,
local schools,
neighborhood safety,
walking distance to parks.
proximity to a decent Turkish bathhouse.
From there, input all your search criteria. Min and max prices, number of beds and baths, single fam, multifam, condo, co-op, villa, townhouse, farm, whatever. You can even draw your own custom search around the neighborhood you want. The open house is the most fun you can have in real estate. It's like having carte blanche to walk into a total stranger's house and snoop around while they're not there. Here are a few pointers. First, feel free to step in without knocking or ringing the bell. Unless you see a note saying otherwise, in which case, yes, knock and/or ring. It's generally considered good open house etiquette to wait until a group of buyers leaves a room or area before entering.
What are you talking about? Let's check it out. I know, so...
Listen to what other buyers are saying. They may know something about the property or neighborhood that you don't.
I bet they don't even know they have
Oh,
this.
no. Ask questions about the house, how long it's been on the market, the school district, the property taxes. But keep it cool. Don't give yourself away by sounding too excited.
And the schools in this area are incredible. Woo! They're actually building a brand new one 3 blocks away. What? And it should be open in the middle of next year.
Yeah! Please do not steal. Finally, if there are snacks or refreshments, do not take them. It'll skew your perspective. Unless they're mini quiches. Those little are tasty as hell.
Welcome back to Spokane Talks Live. Joining us now from New Mexico is Heather Caplan, running coach and dietitian. Heather, are you there?
I'm here.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll kind of dive right into things here. You have actually had a really interesting background. I know you mentioned to me that you actually had an eating disorder, and you are now a dietitian. So if you wouldn't mind kind of just covering and touching on your story a bit, having an eating disorder personally.
Sure, yeah. So I definitely struggled with that while I was in college and I was studying nutrition. So it was a little bit exacerbated by what I was studying and kind of the things that I was surrounding myself with. And I became a dietitian right out of college. So I studied nutrition for 4 years and then did my dietetic internship, which is an extra year of schooling. And after that, I went into my first job and just was working on recovery for myself. So I never sought out professional help, although I wish I had. And I encourage everyone who is struggling to do that. And just kind of went on with my career, and that has eventually evolved into what I'm doing now, which is a private practice helping others who have eating disorders.
Okay, and so I know that, so you are now a dietitian, and you specifically have mentioned youth. And I know so many youth, especially in our region, are just struck with eating disorders, and it's becoming a really large issue. So what are kind of some of the early side effects of an eating disorder?
Well, there are a lot of different side effects. It kind of depends on which disorder you're referring to and kind of what might have been some of the triggers or the developmental issues that led up to that. So the eating disorder specifically that I experience and that I mostly work with is called orthorexia, and that is an obsession with eating healthy food. And I think part of the triggers for that would be the overabundance of nutrition information that we have access to online now, body comparisons through social media, or if you're in sports, the body comparisons that happen with fellow athletes and deciding that if someone looks a certain way, they must perform a certain way. We do see quite a variety of eating disorders amongst different types of people. So we always say they don't discriminate. Someone could look a certain way and fit the stereotype of an eating disorder, but that doesn't mean that everyone looks that way. So it really, again, some of the symptoms might be malnutrition, meaning a lower body weight, but certainly that doesn't always present. Some people could actually gain weight through different eating patterns that they might have. And for women, you're looking at delayed onset of menses, which is a delayed onset of their period. So if teenagers aren't ovulating, that's a red flag. If they've already ovulated and then they lose their periods, that's a red flag. And for men, it could be delays in developmental milestones at certain ages.
And what are some things that as family members and as friends and neighbors that we can do to support those that we, recognize might have an eating disorder? And how should we be responding to that and being supportive without making it, I guess, obvious that we're noticing if they're losing or gaining weight, and we don't want to comment and make it worse for them, but be supportive.
Yeah, so I think you touched on a really important point there, which is not commenting on someone's change in weight, because you never know what that might be the result of. So what I hear a lot and what I experience myself is a positive reinforcement from weight loss. So people might say, oh, you look so great, you've lost weight, what have you been doing? And what they don't know is that that person might actually be struggling with an eating disorder. Alternatively, if someone has been gaining weight and they feel like they're under scrutiny or people are kind of wondering what might be wrong, that can be a trigger. So in general, I always tell people just try to refrain from commenting on someone else's weight or their body in any way, because it's generally not helpful. Even if it's meant as a compliment, you never know how that compliment might be received or construed as a trigger for some certain behaviors. So keeping that in mind, if you do feel like there's a friend or family member that you think might be struggling with some of their eating patterns or their health patterns, you can sit down and ask them, you know, I feel like I'm concerned about you. You seem kind of tired. You seem like your moods are a little bit off. Whatever the symptom might be that's presenting to you, it's okay to ask people about that and to show your concern. I also think a really important point is to encourage people to seek help. So eating disorders are largely stigmatized, and so there's a lot of shame that surrounds an eating disorder. Someone might feel embarrassed or ashamed of their behaviors, or the fact that this is actually a mental health illness, and they are probably a little bit scared to admit that something might be wrong, or a little bit embarrassed to admit that something is going on. So again, just kind of helping destigmatize that by showing your concern and showing your support and encouraging them to get help.
Okay, thank you. And one last thing before we go, I think something that so many of us often think about is, what is it that triggers these eating disorders so often in our society, but specifically in young people? What are the types of things that are causing that?
Again, it can be caused by a variety of different things. So there are some studies that suggest there is a little bit of a genetic component. So people are definitely predisposed to certain types of behaviors that are associated with eating disorders, or certain personality characteristics, such as perfectionism. That's one that I see a lot. Prone to high anxiety, or not dealing very well with change or life stressors. So you see them pop up a lot of times in big transitions. So that might be going through puberty. It might be graduating high school and going to college. It might be that first year of college where life is very different than it has been in the past. So for parents, coaches, teachers, mentors, keeping an eye on those that you love around those big life transitions is important, especially if you feel that they might have some characteristics that put them at a higher risk for disordered eating, such as that perfectionism or that high anxiety type personality. And again, working really hard to destigmatize it. So feeling comfortable talking to them about it, encouraging them to get help. And then just kind of feeling like, you know, for people who are in sports or who are in certain activities where there might be some body comparison. So I consider like dance and gymnastics definitely under those categories. And there might be a tendency to compare body types or associate body type with a certain type of performance, or when there's pressure to look a certain way, that's definitely a high risk for disordered eating behaviors.
And I'm sure that social media probably doesn't help, but inflames that in our society. I think we've become so, you know, you have to look like those on the covers of magazines and in the ads that we see on Facebook. And so I think, I don't know, what do you think about that? Are we watching it more now than we were in the past?
Right. I think we're at a time where we're seeing it actually, the risk, especially for youth, is probably higher than it has been in the past because of the social media, the tendency to compare, and also that immediate feedback. So if someone's getting on one of their social media apps, they're immediately going to see bodies of different types. So what I encourage a lot of my clients to do at any age is really to change the way they see things through social media. So to follow a variety of different body types, meaning body types that are larger, some athletes that are in different sports than what they're doing, as opposed to creating this world where you get into social media and all you see, for example, might be all runners or all elite runners or all long distance runners, or, you know, models that look a certain way. So I encourage people to remove any accounts that feel really triggering to them. Like if they see a photo from that account, they always feel a tendency to compare how they look or how they're performing to that person, and encourage them to follow accounts that, again, show a variety of body types, or maybe just have nothing to do with some of their interests, so that they start to broaden their horizons. So for runners especially, I'll say, try to follow people who don't run, you know, like get your mind out of that space a little bit and create a different environment for yourself online.
Heather, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate that. I know it's kind of a touchy subject for many, especially at this day and age, but it really is an important conversation that I think needs to be had, not only to recognize that it's become such a large issue, but to recognize how there are so many ways that we can be supportive and constructive without making the issue worse. So thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, and that is all for this week's edition of Spokane Talks Live. We'll see you next Tuesday with some very special guests. Have a great week.
Washington's worlds apart. Different values, different priorities. Taking on the DC machine isn't always easy, but I work for you, not them. Like when I forced federal bureaucrats to give Eastern Washington more control over our forests. Stood up to the extremists to defend our dams. And fought to bring more doctors here by expanding the Spokane Teaching Health Center. I'm Kathy McMorris Rogers. Eastern Washington will always be home. And that's why I approve this message.
Spokane Talks Live is produced in Spokane, Washington by Spokane Talks Online LLC, which is solely responsible for its content. To recommend a guest or topic, or to see this program again, please visit our website, SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Spokane Talks Live is brought to you by our friends at Homes for You and Breakthrough Incorporated. Join us next Wednesday, noon, for another nourishing conversation on Spokane Talks Live.